Hi. Hello and welcome to another video about the inner workings of Pickles. In this video I will walk you through the process to publish a new version of Pickles. It's quite a long, it's quite an involved process with a lot of manual steps, and this is certainly an area where you may want to invest some time in to get this running more smoothly. And so I will just present you the situation as it is now, give some ideas about possible improvements, and I'm sure you can come up with a whole lot of things on your own. Okay, so on the screen you see the Pickles project on GitHub, and two things I want to show you here. There's a wiki tab here. I will open now. And on this wiki page, there's not too much. I used to have the documentation of Pickles on there, but that's moved to read the docs. On this wiki page, this wiki, there is now just a couple of 2 pages that describe some technical stuff, and one of these things is the release process. We'll open that, and as you can see, this is quite a long process. Those are sadly all manual steps. So yeah, the first thing is, of course, the first thing to do here is, of course, make this all automatic. Do this somehow on the build server. That's obvious, of course, that this is the way to go. Back then, yeah, I didn't get around to it for lack of knowledge or lack of time or lack of possibilities on the continuous integration server. So these days, I'm sure there are lots more possibilities. I am using an online continuous integration and deployment service, AppFair. That was one of the first that created a build service for .NET. I wouldn't be surprised if the Microsoft Azure has lots of more functionality these days. So if I had to set up the build pipeline of Pickles again, I would probably take not just probably, I would take a very good look at Microsoft Azure and all the possibilities there. But of course, that's up to you. Okay, so on AppFair, and the way AppFair and Pickles on GitHub work together is through webhooks. So we are now on the settings page of Pickles, on the part about webhooks, and here the first of the webhooks, there's one, the one for AppFair. Incidentally, there's another webhook here for Outlook. I'm actually not sure anymore what it does, but anyway, the AppFair webhook, I can edit it. But there you have to define the payload URL. That is where the event should be sent to. There's an ID. Yeah. So basically, whenever there's a pull request or whenever there's a push, this webhook gets activated. So whenever there's a pull request and a push, then GitHub sends a notification to AppFair, and AppFair then knows, okay, I have to build this project. So back to AppFair. Here there's all my list of projects. On top there's Pickles. Let's go to the settings. So the webhook URL, the value that you have to enter on GitHub is taken from the AppFair settings page. And yeah, there's lots of more settings to be done here. Yeah, maybe AppFair, so there's a NuGet tab here, so maybe you can use AppFair to publish to NuGet as well. Who knows, this is something you can investigate. Yeah, so whenever there's a push to the Pickles repository, or whenever somebody creates a pull request to the Pickles repository, then AppFair starts up and does a build, and then you can see whether the build passes. I will now run you through the build process, and we will see some of those things in action. Okay, so back here. Good. Back on the Pickles page, but actually we want the release process page. Okay, I have opened again. So the first step is to create the release branch. I'm going to do this in command line. Git branch. So currently we only have the master branch. Git checkout create release. I try to I use semantic versioning, and suppose we are now releasing version 3.0.0 of Pickles. Okay, it's of course not C but B. And yeah, here we have our new branch. The second step in the process is to edit the change log. So it's a markdown file. You know what? So there we have it. Now I have the description on the side. Here the changelog file is a markdown file. As I said, I use semantic versioning. I tried to format the changelog according to the principles of keepachangelog.com. And yeah, let's add version 3.0 2022. It is now December. We are the 10th. Well, nothing new actually, just a demonstration. So in reality, I would add under added and fixed and so on. I would mention all the GitHub issues that have been included in this directory, in this release. If there's just a pull request, then I will reference this pull request. But if the pull request actually references an issue, then I will mention the issue here in this list. So, and I also give credit to the person who implemented the issue. So yeah, for example, in the last release I added markdown output format. I mentioned the GitHub issue 237. I mentioned the contributor. I also had a couple of fixes. So in our case, this is just demonstration for version 3.0. I saved the file, can close it again. Yeah, so we added the version number, the date. We didn't add anything, we didn't fix anything. Good. On to step 3. Check the version number in build.bat. Okay, edit. There it is. There we manually set the build number, and this is of course a rather annoying thing that we have to set the build number manually here. The good news is it then gets updated automatically everywhere. Right, when I run build.bat, this will run a number of things. it will install fake, F# make, it will install Chocolati, because we're publishing to Chocolati, it will install NUnit, and it will restore all packages to the solution. Then, in an earlier video, I mentioned the build scripts that go with fake with F# make. So first I run the script to build the solution. Second, I run the script to run all the tests. Then I run the script to create the packages that are meant to go on NuGet, and then I run Chocolati to create the packages that are meant to go to Chocolati. So those packages are created, but they are not yet uploaded. Then I call a batch file install packages. Let's have a look what that one does. It will basically fetch the packages for Chocolati and for NuGet that we just created and unpack them somewhere, because we're gonna run them through their paces. Yeah, and then we run the command line test runner, the MS build test runner, the PowerShell test runner. We call that file with the Pickles version, and if that runs through, then everything's fine. What do those files, test runner cmd, test runner, and so on, look like? They are here. It goes to Pickles exe, which we unpacked in a previous step, and here the placeholder is for the version. It will then take some sample feature files from the examples directory. It will create an output of that, and it will do that for all the different formats, for HTML, dynamic HTML, Word, Excel, JSON, Cucumber, and Markdown. So for all those versions, we will run Pickles over the examples, once without experimental features, once with experimental features. And there's so that was the command runner that's included in the NuGet packages, and we do basically the same again for the command runner that's included in the packages that go for Chocolati. Then test runners MS build is very similar. We invoke Visual Studio to run a test project, once with experimental features and one without experimental features. You can see that it's actually a much smaller work set that is being done here. I don't iterate through all the variations here. This test output.proj actually right, let's open this in Atom. So test output proj is simply a dump Visual Studio project file with where the parameters for the MS build task are defined. It references the assembly file and sets the creates the directory and sets the output directory. So it runs the MS build task through its paces. Again, it doesn't iterate through all the possible formats. Let's have a brief look at the PowerShell runner. Okay, that's actually a reference to a PowerShell script. And here again, this is a bit more thorough. It for reaches through all the formats, although I noticed that the markdown format is missing from this list. I forgot to update that. So here the variables are set up, where the features are located, where the outputs should go, name of system under test. Those variables should be familiar to you now. We load the actual task for Pickles. Probably this could be moved outside of the for each loop. Then call Pickles, and again with experimental features. So we're mostly running the runners through their paces. Right, and that's done all automatically in the build batch file by this loop. And if that runs through, then we consider it build went fine. This script does not test the GUI runner at all. Would be a good idea to somehow include the GUI in these smoke tests as well. Back in the day, I briefly considered using Project Castle. I didn't look further into it. I don't know if that one is still around, or if there are other ways to automate Windows Presentation Foundation GUI these days. Right. So that was step 4. Recapitulating, it builds code with a F# make script. It runs the unit tests again with a F# make script. It zips the runner, so it creates zip files. That's actually part of the F# make files. Creates the NuGet and Chocolately packages. Then unzips the files in a deploy folder. And we then use the unzipped files to test all the runners. Good. On to the next step. Deploy artifacts. This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to show you the deploy artifacts file. That has 3 steps, and for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to comment out 2 of those steps because they would actually publish a new version to Chocolatey and to NuGet, which we do not want during this demonstration. Okay, what does deployed output do? First, it goes into a directory and removes the previous version of the outputs, and then it will copy the outputs we created in a previous step. So remember that we've been running the command line version and the MS Build version and the PowerShell version of Pickles to Read Spaces. We created lots of output there, and that output, just the last output we created, because the outputs should all be the same regardless of which runner we use. We copy that output into another output directory, replace a placeholder in the index.html file, and commit that into Git. What we do here is, remember that at some point in another video I mentioned that the Pickles website includes output examples, and that they come from a different source, and that gives rise to some difficulties with the CNAME attribute. Well, this is that part. This is where those outputs are generated, committed into Git, and later on they will be pushed to GitHub, where they will then automatically be published on the website. So the next one, deploy to Chocolati and deploy to NuGet. That's from the principally relatively simple. We use the Chocolati package to push the package, the command line version and the UI version. And this script supposes that you set the Chocolate API key. So in order to push packages automatically to Chocolati, you need to set the API key in the environment variables. This script assumes that this is done. I think that by now they changed the syntax for setting the command key, the API key, or that you need to specify a slightly different address here. So again, that's something to investigate. Deploy to NuGet functions very similar, because after all, Chocolati is something on top of NuGet. So again, you have to set an API key here. Maybe those URLs or those parameters have changed as well. But if assuming that is set correctly, the package then pushes the script then pushes the PowerShell version of Pickles, the command line version of Pickles, and the MS-build version of Pickles to NuGet. So after step 5, the packages are already pushed to NuGet and to Chocolati, but the code is not yet on GitHub. This is a bit weird situation where the packages are already published, but the code is not yet on GitHub. If you do everything server side in the build server, you can hopefully avoid this weird situation. Good. The next step is to push the created release branch to GitHub. Then merge that release branch into the master branch by creating a pull request. You're familiar with that. Then wait for the continuous build to be green and then merge the pull request. And then create a release on GitHub. So here on the releases, the last release we had was 2.21. And if so, the next version could be 3.00. Yeah, good. And as part of that release, we add the version number, we add the release notes that's taken from changelog MD, more or less verbatim, and during the build process, we created some zip files. You have to, so I add those manually to this release. And here, this part, the release notes, is taken almost verbatim from the changelog MD file. Okay, then a bit of housekeeping. I have the habit of marking an issue with the ready to be released label when everything is implemented, and then once I release that, I remove that label and add a comment released in version XYZ. And the final step is release a tweet using @PicklesDoc, which reminds me that I have to sign over the tweet account to you as well. Good. This was actually now a lot of theory. I'm going to run that build script for you and we will see what happens. So cmd command prompt, just to be sure, I like to run this one as administrator. I hope the recording survived the admin nag prompt. Cd dev code GitHub pickles.pickles pickles, there we are. So go back to step number 3. We check the version in build.bat and then run build.bat. And now we sit back and enjoy. This may take a couple of minutes. So he's building. The first step was to retrieve some packages. That's all being done now. Packages fake. Chocolati N unit. Good. Okay, this runner is now obsolete with F# make 5. Please upgrade. So there's some upgrade work to be done in the build scripts for F# make. As you can see, the project is now compiling. So still compiling. In another video I mentioned that I recommended that to move all the output formats back into a single project again. That way you'll have a shorter build time, because this is now taking some time, which is not necessarily, it brings, I never had the benefit of the plugin based scenario and only the pain of longer build times. Good. Still building. My notebook isn't the fastest. Okay, so now we are building the NuGet packages. Adding files to the packages, whoopala, even more things to upgrade. So now we're running tests. I think I will just shut up now and speed up the video so you don't have to watch this live. Creating the NuGet packages now. Okay, now he's running Pickles through its bases. I'm sure that if you have a newer computer than mine, this will go a lot faster. PowerShell version, which complains that commands are not PowerShell compliant. Yeah, the commands in the PowerShell version of Pickles are indeed not PowerShell compliant. I never changed that for compatibility reasons. If you really release a version 3.0 with some breaking changes, then you might consider adapting those PowerShell commands in the PowerShell version of Pickles. So everything ran through fine, which means that step 4 is completed successfully. I will show briefly some of the things that were created here. There's the packages directory, which contains now Chocolatey and F# make, so those were downloaded in order to run all the things in the build. The output directory is here a version where we have all these examples of all the outputs. JSON file for Cucumber, the HTML is an index file, HTML is another index file, Word is a Word document. Yeah. There's another directory created, deploy, which creates the zip files that you will use, that you upload to the GitHub release. There's the packages for NuGet. There's here the extracted packages that we used to run the tests and create the outputs. And there's also the versions for Chocolatey. Yeah. So those are, so deploy, output, and packages are the directories that are created by the build script. I will also run now in step 5 the deploy artifacts, and remember that I disabled 2 steps in the deploy artifacts. I'm not actually going to deploy to Chocolatey, and I'm not going to deploy to NuGet. I just put those outputs of Pickles into a directory for the website. So deploy artifacts, again with the version number, that's 300. And now let's look at the repository. Here in the history, I just now created a new commit with lots of files that contain the newest version of the output. So there you can scroll around and see how Pickles looks in the current version. So that is step 5. I'm not going to show the rest of the steps because that would mean pushing our fictional 3.0 branch actually to GitHub. I don't want to pollute the GitHub repository with that, but I assume you're familiar with pushing branches, with merging branches, and also waiting for the continuous build to be green, and that's all basically standard GitHub stuff. That shouldn't be that shouldn't be any problem. So I'm gonna leave it at that for now for this video. Have a good evening and see you in the next video.